Thank you, Rabbi. Questions. Okay, you could let them know.
Okay, Shalom Aleichem, everybody. We'll talk tonight about how to teach Amunah to your children. Obviously, to teach to your children, you have to first teach it to yourself. So, but the dog is going to be about Amunah, Bitachon, in Chinuch of our kids. I want to start off with the Mamish this week, Shabbos. I had an interesting story here. I Baruch Hashem, I invited to guest Shabbos, and young couple from here, from Kansi Vatayis Bracha, and he's getting ready for Shabbos meal, and the father is holding one kid on one hand, and the other kid is holding on the left hand. I'm sitting on the chair waiting for him to come inside. And the little kid that's holding his left hand, he's like 4 years old, he's holding his father's hand. I noticed on the side of my eye, and he's not wearing a yarmulke. And that the father picks up on it, and he tells his kid, "Where's the yarmulke? Go get the yarmulke." What does the kid say? The kid says, "I don't want." So the father was kind of surprised as our response. Hello, stable. Yeah, a Jewish boy, he needs yarmulke. And the kid doesn't let go. He repeats, I don't want to. I'm sitting over there, what I'm mixing in, but I couldn't hold myself back. And I sort of blurted it out. I wasn't not directed to the kid, but generally to the direction of the child. Who asked you anyways? Hashem wants you to put on yarmulke. And then I froze when I'm mixing it with some other I guess now what's probably starting here now. But the amazing thing is that instead of the kid continuing as I don't wanna, his song suddenly changed. He asked his father 1 second, I think Mama is in the dining room, living room, whatever was there. And he ran to find his yarmulke. He comes back, tells his father he didn't find it. He asked his father. The father actually asked his father, help me find my yarmulke. Now the father has to pull this on the table. The father tries to help him find his yarmulke. He didn't want to leave the table with the father. Then the kid comes back to the yarmulke. I didn't hear a word. Just watching this. So this is something which is, you see it time and time again. So this is something we know it inherently is true. That every one of us as adults, and our children even more so, before they get spoiled, they have an inner desire to do what Eibishter wants. The Kinder geschrien, the kid was screaming before, I don't want to, but the guy said the whole tone, I don't want to. The guy said, you think it's like an immovable mountain here. The kid is not budging. I don't want it. But the second he hears, the Eibishter wants it. Suddenly he felt he got it. Nobody forced him. He himself was able to overcome his horror. I think this is a good story to start off tonight. How do you come here? How do you come here and give a shit about Bitachon? What am I going to teach you about Chinuch and Bitachon? So let's go straight to a few sentences there, and let's start here and understand things straight from. I was hoping to get some things printed. I sent it a little bit late, so you have to read me when I'm reading it from the Pnim. I took 5 sichos from the Rebbe that brings out this nakuda, how the children have, our children have, and by extension, we're children also. We have an inner amunah that comes from the neshama, and that amunah is really what we're supposed to do. That neshama, that amunah that we don't have, that's where we're supposed to build all our strengths for simchas hachayim, all our strength for having Bitachon the Eibishter. You wonder where do I have it from? The first portion, they want to answer. The Eibishter gives us the neshama, and we reveal it to Torah mitzvah. So still the Kudos that I've always told us that the amunah in the Eibishter, everything is Eibishter. We have in the neshama, that's a chelik kamal mamish. And we reveal that neshama through learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. So this is really the foundation. If we focus every part of the foundation to this, our lives will be a lot easier and a lot more simple. So we're going to go to a sikha in Purim. This actually is a well-known sikha. So we'll take out the Nakud over here. Let's try to build a thought process of how and to the child who we are. Because we said the child having a passport if he's 5 years old, or if he's 55 years old, or 105 years old. It's not about the age on the passport. It's not the age of who we are. So it talks about Mordechai HaYehudi, Mordechai HaTzadik. He meets 3 boys coming out of Tammuz. In a very, very abbreviated fashion. He meets 3 boys coming out of Sefer, coming out of Yeshiva, and he asks Sukkah. He says, "Give me the pasuk." Haman Rosh is watching this with his friends, and each one says a pasuk. The pasuk that we say after Aleinu, Altin Pachat Pisem, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of the Shayim. The idea of not being afraid in this world from the Shayim. Then you have the second one says, that even if there are those that are trying to hurt you, they shall make sure that with us. And finally, the third one, the older one said, that they shall made us, and they shall save us. That's it. Even when we get older. So the question obviously is, I want to remind everyone, I'm sure many of you learned this already before. But they bring up what's in the Quran over the Sikh that I was saying. It's like this. Why was so Mordechai became very happy and he went out. He put on a sack of Ephod. So what was his excitement? What did he hear? If he felt it was a nevuah that everything would be okay, why did he have to put on a sack of Ephod? Why did he have to go fasting? Why did he start crying? He said, the Ephod is going to help. So obviously it wasn't. After this event, it gave him koyach to keep on going and doing his afraid to be a vatl because there's something. What was going on over here? Emunah is the foundation of Klal Yisrael. Emunah is the foundation. We're all looking at the terrible tragedy that happened, and it's still going on in Florida. And there seems to be a few of these type of tragedies. That the sad of the tragedies is that a building is a big, beautiful building. If the side is faulty and the beams don't hold the building, the beautiful building falls apart. You have bleachers allow people to stand on bleachers. If something is wrong with the foundation, the whole beautiful building goes flying. And Munna is the foundation of everything who we are. And this shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody sitting here or anybody listening. You say that the Prophet said that I'm the Munna and the Eibush. Now, Munna and the Eibush doesn't mean that the Eibush only means that the Eibush is somewhere up there and removed of the faket. The Munna means that the Eibush is Mashgiach, the Eibush gives life, the Eibush creates every one of us, every massive wind is created by the Eibush, and therefore it's good. That's a Munna. This is they say this. A person can be busy doing Torah and mitzvahs the whole time, and as a munah is a bit schwach, and it's not the way it's supposed to be, or his understanding of what this is all about is not the way it's supposed to be. And the whole building is a fasting. The way physically it happens, it can happen by this. A munah is how they say that who we are. Mordechai Yehudi knew that the only way Haman was able to make a Torah was there was a beginning, there was something that the munah didn't bow down to the tzelem. He bowed down before. So I guess that's had made. So the touch, the very say of who we are, connection with the Eibush was compromised. Or whatever I say it was even only nice, and he didn't really believe it. But the Mordechai didn't know that's the way Haman was able to make a gzeir against the Yidden. So he was wondering how could he awaken the Emunah? How do you make this Emunah? I want to use this hour we have. I'm going to talk about how do you get this Emunah out? Is it there? By these three psukim that the children told him, Utzeitz and Yusufa, Kimono Kel, and Altir Pachapisim and Yusufa and Bazikna, all these psukim are 3 levels of Emunah, going higher and stronger in understanding of the Eibush that's with us. Once Mordechai saw that even children are talking like Yidden, they're talking with an Emunah, not to be afraid, and he realized there's what the works over here. If they're coming out of yeshiva and they're talking with Emunah, then he's able to make the Gzeira. First of all, he sees that the health of the Jewish nation is there. How do you see it gesund? First, he sees that the Eibishter is why the reason why we're not afraid. Even natural weaknesses a person goes through, which is a person getting old. Eibishter with us. Eibishter with us. So that he knew that kids will come home and their children will inspire the parents inspire the children. The ikir is you have to know this Amunah has to be brought back to life. Once he knew the Amunah was there, then he went out, he took Sakfeifer, and he started doing tshuva, and he rounded up 20,000, he put together 20,000 children to make his Misraban, he learned the Mesilas Nefesh, and everything you know from the beginning later. But it's all about why was he Samach? And that's why Hamarosh, like I said, you're first going to get the children, because that is where our basis of Yosef, we have as Amunah. So we're all trying to make through this terrible goals. We're going through difficult goals. Everybody is struggling, as I understand this, whether it comes to parnasim, when it comes to health, when it comes to even raising children today is very difficult. But we have to try to get back on track. Pasha to focus on bringing out the munah tahira that we have in ourselves and the munah tahira that our children have. And once we have that, then we know that the Hashem will be in this battle. There will be no more. Some of the Eibush, as the Eibush saved Eden in the times of Purim, the Eibush will save us and makes Mashiach sustainable now. That's the first Nakuda. Then the second goes like this. There's a lot of discussion. What can the child take? And I want to say a few times in this that the child is not only a child that's 5 years old. We're talking about a child that's 55 years old. I mean, whatever. So there's another sikha in Pashat Vayera. This is another sikha that everybody knows about it. Again, we want to talk about it. We want to regale it. We want to bring us back, as he said, these are all smuggling sikhs from the Rebbe. That the Rebbe shows us the way. And it talks about the story with the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe Rashab came home, Pashat Vayera, and he was crying. And what was his? Why was he crying? He was crying because why didn't the Eibush reveal himself to him the way the Rebbe Rashab was a child? Why didn't he reveal to him as he revealed to Avraham Avinu? From there, I'm going to read this out loud. Hoping you get a copy of it, it didn't work out. So the Rebbe said, the lesson from the story is like this. Not haste. I'm going to say it in Yiddish, and then you can chaz it in English, or whatever he said. As men darf mechanisch sein, a kind, as Göttlichkeit soll werden, als Teil von seinem Leben. There's something, Sachen, was dvorm a bis as ihm soll stark verehren, was der Eberste, aber weiß ich nicht zu ihm, in dem Eifen, wie hat, man wissen zu haben. That means we have to be mechanisch a child that Göttlichkeit, the kurs, godliness, should be for him something he loves. And if that's something he doesn't have, it should bother him the same way that it bothered Avraham Avinu. So you're going to argue that Rambam says that when you speak to a child, you have to speak to him about physical things, candies. You have to give him things that he is in his level, and that's how you mechanech him to get to learn for the candy, and then later he realizes that learning itself is something important. So the Rebbe said this. That is taki true. But here the story is giving a new way of chinuch. The Rebbe is telling us that the Rebbe is revealing we have a certain kayach in our generation that we don't have to give him child a candy in order for him to learn, and then he will later develop a love for the Eibishter. The child himself now is able to understand the geschmack from Göttlichkeit. This is again a movie to Zicha. And I read it as never borrowed. It's a clear thing that with this story, the Rebbe revealed us, and he actually opened up the tzina, opened up the flow of kayach, gave us the kayach as in a way of chinuch. As each now durch a chinuch to the body through a proper chinuch, can man each payre sein the gidra teva. We're able to. The Rambam was talking about the general teva, how children are. Generally, that's the way it is. A child has to be mechunach first for candies, to things that sweets, until he gets to understand the beauty of Göttlichkeit. But here now, the Rabbeim gave us the kayach, and angewöhnt that the child could be to a point where he's able to become accustomed to want ruchnis till he has a chukka gedela at the Eibush of verweisen. And then listen to this. It doesn't that doesn't leave it there in words you can say yes there, but what? This is 5 lines. Was im Art nicht was der Eibush verweisen. When you see a child that doesn't not bother, well, the Eibush is not revealing himself to him. So how does that happen? Is this? It's not because the child is not shaykhs to it, but because the mechanic, the teacher, is not talking to him in a way that the yitzim in alev. So here you have it. We have to understand we're living now in a time. We have the koyach paschatzinah. We are able to enjoy. We are able to develop a time to enjoy getachkeit. We have to just be able to mechanech ourselves. We have to find the right words. That should one raise from left to explain to the child that's 5 years old and try to explain to ourselves to a point where we can actually enjoy doing a mitzvah, learning Torah, doing mitzvahs. And this is not something I had personally. This is why I want to start with the story. Still tired kid, but telling his father, "Don't put on the yarmulke." Go talk to him. Yeah, he heard from somebody maybe I saw him a year ago. He hears from a stranger sitting and tells him what the Eibush wants Hashem wants to put on the yarmulke. Literally wants to put on the yarmulke. So this is something which is achievable. We have to just believe, have the emunah in our Rebbe, in our teacher, that when we're told that the chinuch can be done such a way, that's the way we want to have kids, that they give a geschmack, so then if you want to have a similar reference, there's a sikha in Chedek Vav Yisrael, where the Rebbe talks about Shemin as Hanir by Matan Torah. Yidden were able to see that what is heard and hear what that was seen. That heard this word, but it's similar to the same thing. Rashi is talking to the Chavish Mikra, and he's saying the Chavish Mikra, Matan Torah, Yidden were able to see that which is heard. What does we say? What's the miracle? See that's heard. Seeing grasps Gashmis. When you see something, it becomes very real. When you hear something, Shmiya, you understand it. It's not lavdafka something that you can mamish physical, right? It's abstract. You hear an idea. Luchnius, you hear music. So when you say Shem, Yerenis and Nishma, we said even saw by Matan Torah, the Eibush was this miracle. They saw that was heard. They saw by them, by Eden Matan Torah, by them, the Indian form which is usually heard, the Ruchnis was usually heard was an eighth of seeing it. They mamish saw Getachkeit. They saw it. So this Rashi says, what interesting is that points out that Rashi says to this the Eden saw, that means he's talk to a child is able to relate to the idea. You talk to him about Eibush, you talk to him about Ruchnis, he could be an eighth of Shaliah. The other half, where Shemin is Hanir, that child should hear by him, what physical should be an eighth of hearing. It doesn't really relate to physical, it's not a child can handle. But this part a child could handle. This is the idea. I want to show you a story like this. There's maybe you heard this guy's name. It's not a guy. There was a big Askin, a war survivor. His name is Chaskel Besser. Chaskel Besser was the leader of a village in Israel. Was one of the tactical positions he had, and he had a big theater from the Rebbe. I heard this from the story from his son. His son came to visit me in the place called prison. And he shared with me this story. I think it's printed also, but I heard directly from his son. This son was somebody that Rebbe had put him on his lap. He was sitting on his chair, and they actually put him on his lap, his father. And his grandson is fully blessed from this Montreal was very, very helpful. For my case, he wrote about it and he brought it to light. It's really blessed. So this his son used to come visit me. He told me a story like this. This Chaskel Besser had a friend. Took him maybe in the 1960s, and he had a friend, and he brought his son. He brought his friend. His friend had his sister was very sick. So Chaskel said, "Let's go to the Bab Rebbe get a bracha." He got an appointment, and he didn't. The friend didn't want to go himself, so Chaskel went inside with him to bracha. The Rebbe, the brother says to the Rebbe, my sister is very sick. This is very, very bad situation. The Rebbe asks, his brother is your sister religious? I said, so she said no. So the Rebbe asked, does she like Shabbos meal? So he said, yeah. So the Rebbe's time to him was, why did you just tell me she's not religious? If she likes Shabbos meal? It's interesting. He doesn't mean, you like Shabbos, what do you do? You affirm me, you affirm me, you have a Shabbos. We come to Zagen, we better think a Munda has to be back in Elamat Silas. I'm afraid it's Shabbos. Shabbos if the so he told her, give a bracha, he told her before she likes Shabbos, she should give tzedakah. Give a bracha for his friend. Then the Rebbe turns around to Katzkel, who's staying there the whole time, and he asks him, now, do you have any questions you want to ask? Do you have any questions you want to ask? He does. Has a question. What was his question? This Katzkel Besser was from Poland. And he was from the Heim. He was at Adamsk Chassid. Adamsk was one of the big Chassidus in Poland. And most of them got murdered by the Nazis. And he was a survivor. And Adamsk Chassidus, he wrote the Shleim, I think his name is Sefer. And then so he says what bothers him. He comes. His question was like this. Question was, he comes to 770. And all he sees is Sodom from Chabad. Tanya said, how come I don't see the good for the mitzvah? How come I don't see it for the mitzvah? How come I see it for the Shlema? He was a little bothered by this. And he shared it with the Rebbe. Now, that's not so. Chaskel says the Rebbe gave him a moshel. The Rebbe answered him in a way, not only answered his question, but he used the moshel. The Rebbe used the moshel, which really is something that he really related to at that time. So he spoke to him very much. What was it? He had lost his father shortly before the story. His father passed away from an infection. And he went to the hospital. They gave him penicillin. And later the infection did not go away and overcame the person and passed away. So he always felt, this Chatzkel always felt that had the doctors saw the problem earlier and they would have given a higher dose of penicillin, who would have saved his father. So the marshal that ever used, this marshal that ever used, he said when a lot of times a person would get a sickness, get a bacteria, it was deadly. Then the doctors found a thing called penicillin, and they figured out that as a 10% penicillin it kills this bacteria. Then the bacteria got smarter, and 10% didn't work anymore. So they had to up it up 20%. And that worked. And they helped people stay alive. Then the bacteria got smarter. So they had to up to 30% to keep ahead of it. So until they had to give it a higher dose that killed all the bacteria, they had to up it up to kill the bacteria. So the Rebbe says that all the citizens, obviously, when they ate harder, and the Eberster had to be regal chassidus to fight the Yitzhara. But initially, it was enough 10%, it was enough a little bit of a lower level. Then the Yitzhara got smarter, so you needed a stronger gili of chassidus to kill the heavy bacteria. Then the Yitzhara got stronger, so you had to go. So the Rebbe said chassidus Chabad is 100% penicillin for all ailments. So that's why, in other words, that's Sholom. And he accepted the answer because he realizes that Hashem not talking about we don't learn other citizens. Because I heard last night, I heard a tape after from the Rosh Hashiva, Rabbi Sholom from California. So he was saying personally a story with him. He had written to the Rebbe about his challenges in life. He's a bacher, and obviously he's going to begin, and he's a very big going. So in all his learning, he still had his own challenges. So and he tried to find the answer in science. The Rebbe said to him, if you have a question, what have to handle any problem, look into the Mafteh in Tanya, so you can find any problem you have, and any problem you have, you find the answer in any time. What's it that? So we're given the ability to be able to take the emunah that we so badly need, the Bitachon that we so badly need today, and how to apply it, how to take it out. And the idea to say that that children, this is one idea what we got, that children are not shaykhs to this. You see clearly, it's not so. It's not so. A child, Elamai, you have to have the ability to open the chassidus. Gives you the ability to understand that you're talking to an neshama. You're talking to a child, you're not just talking to a person who has a brain, a smaller brain, a small level of understanding. You're talking to a child, the child has a neshama. The Rebbe teaches us about Eibishter, the Eibishter is everything, and the Rebbe teaches that every has a neshama, we go accept the Eibishter. And the child has the Yerusha, that same neshama that we have. So when we talk to the child about Emunah, it's not talking to something that's way above him. I can very, 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 very well easily understand whether he's a child. Whether he's a child, Rishonim, or a child. So this is what he's saying over here. That today, the Eibishter. Okay, and that now I want to shift gears. I want to go to the next level. The Munah is brought out to the Torah mitzvahs, and the means we have to take the mitzvah. There's one of the stories that I encountered this guy in a place called prison. I encountered a guy called Ghost. His nickname, every day had nicknames. His name was Ghost. And Mamish, this Nakuda we're talking about played out with him Mamish in a very big way. In that when he first met me, how did he know he was Jewish? I saw him walk around the American cities. And he had just brought into the place called prison, a newcomer, and he sees me walking by wearing the yarmulke and sits flying out the size of my fence. So he gives a scream out to some of the guys standing around him. Hey, look, the guy there has strings hanging out of his fence. He's laughing for my tzitzis. And for a minute, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I keep on walking, maybe he didn't hear it, it's behind me. Or I turn around and face him off. The David said, put in my mind, I have to right away stop it. For a year and a half, it was going good. Nobody bothered me. The first time I was challenged, so I turned around to this guy, that's taller than me. And I told him, hey, what's your problem? Like, I'm not going to fight, but you don't look for fights in a place like prison, but like, how you talking? He realized that he was Pegeya. He with me. So he started backing off. And he says, no, I wasn't in front of you. Actually, I know where they are. So what are they? And this comes, and he says, yeah, that's it, the tzitzis, right? But the way he said tzitzis, I realized that he's a Yiddish guy. That's how I realized he's a Yid. So I looked at him and said, you Jewish? He says, yeah. What's his story? It's not, this is going to be on the YouTube. Maybe I lost track of who he is. I forgot his real name. But the reason he got the nickname of Ghost because he was mamish boy like a shin dollar. He says he learned in Avatera, and he was very vild. He went to the streets. He became part of a gang, and then became leader of a gang, and then became a leader of a Mexican gang. And to make a long story short, he wound up in the prison before I met him 10 years in the highest security level that I was in. That's the highest one is in the level thing. And now it was a year left. For a sentence, they brought him down from the high down to medium to acclimate him to society. Everything's, of course, on paper. So they just wanted this Ghost to meet me. Or I should meet the Ghost, however you want to say it. So now that I found out that he's Jewish, I say how the inside, we're looking for a way how to get him on film and the daven with him, learn with him, and Baruch Hashem for the next whatever how many months it was. I don't remember exactly 9, 10, 12 months. I think I spoke with him, and most of the time I would ask him for a film. He would say yes. No. And sometimes he would tell me he was very busy. That's the most amazing thing I'll never forget. One time I couldn't find him, so I ran up to his cell on the 5th level. He opened the door, his cell is as bare as he wanted to be. There's nothing there. It's just a steel cement. He's lying on this bed on his mat, looking into space. Yeah. He said, Ghost, yeah. You want to put on film? So he says, Rabbi, I'm too busy right now. It's busy. I was just watching. Of course, if I would think we said that the mamish ASIC Sabin for my American door of film to run that day. I could put more time for what's the point of the story? One day he walks in. I'm sitting over there, and there's one of the moments in that for me. So sitting in this, remember the cell number was 219. Sitting over there, he walks in, and he asks me, "Hey, Rabbi, I want to tell you busy." I said, "Yeah." No, I said, no. I want to talk to him. He says, what do you want? He tells me, I want to put on film. Just shaka. All these months that I met him, he never ever came to ask me. I always had to hunt him down, find a step by the door and come back to exercise. Little he came to me. So of course I put on film, but he looked terrible. He looked totally anxious, strung like a wire. You can see, I mean, you see on the face, he was that's not himself. So I asked him, what's the problem? You look like you just saw a ghost or something. What's wrong? He tells me, I really want to find out what prompted him to come put on that film. That's the point of the whole story. And amazingly, he says to me like this. He says, he got notified 3 days earlier that he's going home, let's say, in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And suddenly he was hit with this panic that he can't sleep at night. He can't sleep. Why? I can't say that. I told him, you're going home in 3 weeks, make a kid, so you'll be happy. They told me I'm going home in 3 weeks. At that point in time, I would have been excited. I was like, are you kidding? So he says to me, don't laugh. He says, I'm very nervous, because who am I going to go? Who am I going to be with? What's going to be? I said, I don't want to meet my old friends. So he's looking for, so I said, this Mr. Toffee, he made knives and secret pockets. This guy was out of his mind. He came to the power. He was like a real rough guy. This Mr. Rafter guy, midterm, I can't sleep at night. He says, I fall asleep 5 minutes, I wake up. Imam Shashop, I said, he can't. He looked at it. So he wanted to find some looks on that. What he come to do? He can't run through. He knew that in this place, this insane asylum called prison, if you can't sleep at night, you go to the 6 psychiatrists there, or 7 maybe, I once counted 6, I once 7, so I'm not sure exactly. And they give you a prescription right away. You can get schlafen. But he didn't do that. He obviously, over all the months I spoke on with him, the few times I put on with him, he had to feel a certain benefit on nefesh that he came to relive. Now that he was strung out, he came to relive it. So this was a memory I had from Bingen. I've seen it by the Rebbe, and the Rebbe was explaining the power of mitzvahs. And this again, we think about mitzvahs. Mitzvahs is not a ritual, it's not a ceremony, it's not something Jews do because that's what we always did in that sense. Mitzvahs is tzavs v'chibur. We do a mitzvah, we do a mitzvah, we refine ourselves, and by extension, the world around us, depending how we do the mitzvah, obviously. That's what we're getting into. When we do a mitzvah, Mesilas Nefesh, the only way we do Mesilas Nefesh is because we do it because Hashem said so, meaning we're doing it from the essence of our being, then we connect with himself, not hide all the. That's a mitzvah. Even this goes, I wish I knew Rebbe's name, I think maybe Rosenberg. This goes had to feel that connection. They never get that emotion from a baby. When a baby is born, a baby doesn't know what food is. A baby never is told that when you get hungry, you can ask for food. It doesn't happen like that. The mother knows that when a baby is hungry, it's crying. Why is the baby crying? The baby is crying because it has a pain in the stomach, it has discomfort in the stomach, it's anxious, it doesn't feel right. So it cries. The mother knows it didn't eat, it gives it food, the pain goes away, the kid goes back to sleep. It stops crying with the point, right? Same thing with the neshama. If a Yiddish neshama is not doing a mitzvah, it's going to have pain and it'll be anxious. And the answer to that is Pasha, do a mitzvah. Yeah, you've stuck it. You're doing Pratzul. Light Shabbos candles. Keep Shabbos. Zay b'simcha. That the mitzvah alone, now the mitzvah is food for the neshama. That a person can walk around, he doesn't, the same way a baby doesn't know that hunger is until years, months and months later, until it figures out the connection between the pain in the stomach, that type of discomfort, and food and how they correlate. And then asks for food, the same way sometimes a Yid doesn't realize that the anxiety that he is going through, and the fear that he's going through, and the depression he's going through, is simply he has to get himself back in sync. There's a neshama Davidshka. You can't solve a neshama hunger with gashmis. You can't solve the neshama gashmis. You can take a vacation from here. How long ever you want to take it? People had a vacation for the last year. And Corona, I got a vacation. This is the hey, take ein Geld, und so du willst. And you have vacation. You can't solve a neshama problem. Forget it. If you're not going to deal with Teda Mitzvahs. So that's what Teda Mitzvahs is. Teda Mitzvahs is, and this is part of Chinuch. When we tell a child, they ask to Teda Mitzvahs, it's not because, as it We talk about beside the Hayyan Neshama, by you doing the mitzvah, collecting the Eibush, that Hashem wants it. And this child understands it. And that's those mitzvahs that you do without psharas. Forget, do a mitzvah with this nefesh. This is straight out of the Maivat Tzav if you want to know. Many places. I printed a picture here from Chanukah Gallup, you have over here that after the doing a mitzvah without any psharas, Chanukah's advice, Chanukah's mishkans with chinuch, your children need a chinuch. The chinuch has to be after without psharas. And when a father lives up Shabbos, when a child sees that the father is keeping a Shabbos on Shabbos, not on Chachmas. Yeah, the thing is a time and a place. I sent it like no result. I go upon him. He writes about the kids like so. The death my God in the sky on Shabbos. From child, we're talking about a munah. How do you get a munah out from a child? How do you get the munah out from a child? You teach him to do a mitzvah of psharas. It's one of the things that saved me. Was this chinuch that I had? The chinuch that I had, our chinuch was a mitzvah without psharas. I hate the mitzvah. I hate the mitzvah means your child can tell in a second if you do the mitzvah because he has to, or if you're doing the mitzvah because you have a technique. How do you get a chayes in it? Think for a second. What I'm keeping Shabbos. I have a Shabbos day. The Shabbos day was a good time for it. The best time it all ties together because on Shabbos you have to show me a seder. Yeah, that means everybody around the table has a greater sensitivity to kedusha. That's the time to give over. So your child are geschmack in English. Not to use the time for stambus, idle talk, forget. Use that time, use a place. You come into a kedusha. What's kedusha? Kedusha is not tangible in the sense you can describe it. Kedusha is felt by a child. He has in the shama, you can feel kedusha. So when you go to shul and you take a don't talk, and you treat the shul different than you see somebody with a hamachacham to learn. You treat him different than somebody else because he learns. The child in 2 seconds picks this up. It doesn't take a lot. And in the same way that Mr. Gold's of the Verstanden, he was desperately looking for a moment of menucha. I said, I'm here appella. I had this many times, but until today I must have had it hundreds of times. I can't get out of my mind. Now a guy who lived in the streets of Florida, in the heavy, hardest gangs, Mexican gangs, he wound up. It wasn't for jaywalking. Maybe it was jaywalking. I shouldn't say that. That he wound up in the high security prison, and he was tough even in prison. The guy once showed me he made 2 knives in a secret passage. In a few months, knives. He's already somebody would start with him. He showed him a knife and stab him. He wasn't the average guy, but he looked at nefesh. Even he was able to understand. That's what he came to do. He came to do a mitzvah because he knew that moment of a mitzvah, he suddenly, how did he know? He felt it. There's a neshama. So if he can feel it, why can't we feel it? Otherwise, we have to get away from thinking that a mitzvah is like a seichel because the Rebbe Rayat said like this. The whole world says, I can do a mitzvah of hookah with the same chayes of bishpatim. He says, I can do a mitzvah of a mishpat in the same chayes of hookah. After the mitzvah that you don't want to do, and after the mitzvah that your seichel says not now, and after the mitzvah that says I don't understand it. If you do that mitzvah, why? How can you do that mitzvah? Because you're showing the look of the Eibush to want you to do it, and exactly the Eibush. That's the biggest chayes you can have. You're also doing the soil in life, right? And the soil of hookah. Every person is given their soil. Every person is given their challenge of life. They can't for the life of them. They can't understand why they have to go through the hardship, and the other guy next to them doesn't have to. And the answer is, he speaks parashah. Gato. Everything has his gato, his neshama, his connection, his job. We will stop for a second and think, Amun the Eibush gives them. I'm in the neshama, I'm connected to Eibush. And to tell the mitzvahs, I'm revealing my neshama, and the Eibush that gives me a shlichus in this world to do. So forget, mit the mold, the ganze Schwierigkeit turns into a mission. And you're happy to do it. It's hard. But you're happy to do it because you're accomplishing something. You're doing what you accomplish. You're connected to the Eibush, the Bakar HaChaim. So this is all the inyanim where we talk about chinuch. How do you teach your children to teach yourself that? Enjoy your mitzvah. We'll find, I think, the fifth one about the Nefesh. On this Nakuda, this is Vayera, that essentially going to for the Akedah. The Akedah, I want to mention this, and I want to go to a mimer from the Alphabet and say the Eiran, then we'll open for questions. We first got out a mimer, I printed the whole mimer, I learned it, but I didn't come out though. Okay. Before the Akedah, Avram Avinu lived in Plishtim for 25 years. Remember the Rashi there? In Eretz Plishtim, he lived a good life. We hit the Eishel. In other words, there's no Redifus. Avram Avinu had it, the time was good, there was no Nisyanis. It was like before with Melchamas, Mises. But what was he doing there? He was doing tzedakah with the Mesilas Nefesh. He was going to build chasadim to everybody, giving away not only what they needed, even more than they needed. They gave everybody not only the bare minimum of food. They gave, in order to do more than the bare minimum, means you have to do the highest. Says the Rabbi, that 25 years in a country like America, we have in a time nobody's chasing us. And that gives them with mitzvahs, with higher than our agbolas, that prepares us. That prepared Avraham Avinu for the Akedah. And when he suddenly was told he has to take his son Yitzchak for an Akedah, he had to get to do it. Why? Because he lived that in the land of Plishtim, he was not related. In a place where he had everything he needed. In a place, but he did mitzvahs in the Eifim, give out tzedakah higher than it was demanded of him. That prepared him to be able to go to the same. If you want to know what can prepare us, we talk to your child, and your child says, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. Do mitzvahs. With hidden. Do a mitzvah Mesilas Nefesh. Don't just do as he's taking Shulchan Aruch and cut it off. So let the children self-see. We have to enjoy doing the mitzvah because the mitzvah starts in the chibur. And then we have a reference. Who do you reference back to Torah? And I'll finish with this mime over here. Right at the beginning of Torah 8 is a mimer that starts out. I don't know why I didn't come out bold. I don't know. Huh? I'll have to give over to you. I pulled it out. It's supposed to be. I can't. The references you'll never see it. The Rebbe says. Now the Rebbe says like this. A very interesting word. The Eibishter kicked out Adam Arishan from the Gan Eden. It said the passage of Vayimber Hashem Elokim Ein Hadam Hayik Achim Menu Odaste Rav Ve'ata Peyishlach Yodei. What was that? Now that Adam Arishan knows he knows to understand good and bad. Give me 5 more minutes and I'll open the questions. This is a very powerful understanding in ourselves and the world around us and what we're doing to ourselves today. Because Adam Arishan has das. So now he knows a different. He knows about Teva Ra. Yeah, now can't be Gan. Well, why not? He says. Means they speak to Malachim, yeah? Malachim, and they also not over that. So why is it that when Adam Arishan knows Tev and Ra, he cannot be in Gan Eden? When Malachim are Gan Eden, also knows Tev and Ra. So what was the Avram of Adam Arishan? So the answer in a nutshell like this. The idea about Tev Ra is the idea that the Malach knows of Tev Ra. He just knows, but that's not that the Ra touches him. He knows about the Ra. He knows the from back. In a general way, he knows there's a world of flippers that do Hevach Hashem. But it doesn't affect their Tev. It's not a state. Gan Eden is a place of Kedusha. So just knowing that there's a world of flipper doesn't interfere with you being in Gan Eden. But a person is built as a pnimi. If you want to know all the details, you can look at the Reminder. You can't read the paper, you can open the Torah, it's right at the beginning of Bereshis, and that's how the daf is daf hey on the A person is a pnimi. When a person learns something, he internalizes it. And then, when he internalizes it, his Teva Ra becomes not separate entities. It becomes intertwined. That means his type is being affected by the Ra that he just understands. Before Chet Das, the Marisha was higher than the whole Yid from Chet. The Mele was Yid from Dusha. The Mele, he had no Chet Das. When he ate from Chet Das, now it wasn't just he knew about Ra. The Ra actually became intermixed with his Taiv. So now he can't understand Taiv without it being affected by Ra. And by him being affected by Ra, and if he can live forever, that means he's going to make the Ra live forever also, because the Ra became part of him. So he has to get out of Gan Eden, and now he has to cook it out of the system. And that's the Aveda of Aveda Sapuni. He has to get out of his system. What's the point? What is this? What is everything? A person is not a computer. I think we'll all agree. Not with their feelings only. A person, a computer has the capacity to put everything in its file. It can take an information and file it on the Kedusha. It can take information and file it on the Kedusha. And there's two types of places: the Tammuz, the Shloshim place, and the mistake. Not have a Kedusha. So a computer can do that. A person can't do that. When a year goes and he learns, he gets to know something which is klipa, it affects the way he's able to understand Kedusha. The person affects him. And if you think, Mamish now we're learning Rambam, and now you understand why he is not allowed to learn even these things of Goyim. He said you're not allowed to learn any of the books that how the Goyim think and how the Goyim understand things. Don't learn it. Why not? You're trying to hide information from me. This is the deal. Because we are pnimi. When we take in information, we can't compartmentalize and say, the morning I look at my Mercedes, I'm flying high. And in the afternoon, I want to Google and search up this idea in, what's it called, that thing? It's called mindfulness, which is rooted in Avodah Zarah. And to think that somehow, I'll give you an example, or ideas from Aristotle, and that to think that's not going to interfere with the Kedushas that I read tomorrow. Explains that the Torah tells us that a person wants to know Das Tevurah, he internalizes, it gets intermixed, and he can't separate it. He could get it out of the system. The Rabbi explains later, he could get it, but it's a big avodah to get out of your system. You can't easily get out of your system. Because the Ra becomes part of the way you think. Somehow, some way, the theist, how are you going to say something is lose its purity? How is it negaya to our discussion tonight about teaching Emunah and the Bitachon is? Our children, for sure, are pure. They're pure. Allowing our children to internalize or hear ideas that are not Kedusha is partially hurting them. And then you wonder, how come kids today, you talk to them and it flies over. It's something, the story I started this night when the kid was 4 years old. But when children are exposed to ideas about self and they're exposed about ideas, old ideas that whatever it is, not enough time tonight to get into it, and our yeshivas, so allow them to internalize, and we think this is Kedusha, and this is social studies, whatever, mental studies. If they conflict, if it's Ra, if it's coming from Klipa, the Torah is teaching us that it's affecting the way, not only the way they understand things as an American, it affects the way they think as a Jew. So next time you want to tell him that Hashem wants you to wear a yarmulke, the 4-year-old kid that's like, he ran to get a yarmulke. But as you get older, as you internalize more and more, it makes me feel happy. This, now, I don't feel like it. I'm going through a hard time. I'm under stress. I'm very anxious. I don't feel good. All these sachen, it's about the person, about the that's what happens. That's that. What's that? Tanya says, that is anything that's not the English as that. That's not Aveda. If it's not kedusha, is it not? The world is divided into three parts: kedusha, klipus, nega, and certain players before a person touches it. Once a person touches it, it's either kedusha or players. There is no pattern. In Yiddishkeit, there's no pattern. There's no middle. Before the world, he goes into the world and he has three realms. He has a realm of kedusha, mitzvahs. He has a realm of isurim, the raises, the rabbanon, minhagim. That's there, right? And then he has the rishus. He has the b'srega. Once the yid touches it, he uses it. There's no three anymore. It's either he pulled up the kedusha or he pulled it into the shofet meis, and by extension, that pulls him down there too. So the point is, we spoke about a lot. I wanted to finish off with this thought. We spoke a lot about what a munah is, how a munah we have from the neshama, we have it inherently, how through the mitzvahs we reveal our neshama, and our munah gets stronger. We're able to have the strength of doing the mitzvahs from our neshama through the munah which we all have. But along with that, we also have to understand that there's Tevera in the world. And if we get involved with Ra, we're not computers, we can't compare whatever the word is. Yeah, thank you. We can't do that. And therefore, we're actually putting it together. And if you look at the bottom of the list page on this, only one more thing I want to show you. And this is straight from Teda Eir, from the Alter Rebbe. He brings like this, the Kote Teira from the Maharizal. He was going, and all the Mauritian before the Chet was going in the Echolis. Other Mauritian was even higher than the level of the Rashbi. The whole different level. Because he was the Yitzhak HaKadosh himself. The male of Echolis had tumor, they don't see what happens. He didn't want to look in there. Not even look. Klal. So what did the Nachash do? They see how Nachash, the Nachash suggested to him, Shalkaponim, Yabit, he should look. What's happening there? So just surfing the web, give a look. He's walking to the Echolis. What's the deal? Says the Arizal, Nichshal, this is how he tripped. The Nafal, the Taib, that's how the Nafal Taib to them, and that's the Chaim Shemati that he brings to that basic for anybody. I think it's a very powerful piece over here that so fit to put at the end of the Maimon. After explaining that the right before that, he talks about how did Nachash know about the Yedei Tevera? How did he know the whole thing? He comes from there. The Nachash himself comes from Tevera, and he knew that this problem that the person had in his makeup, he can't just know about Ra. The second he knows about Ra, he develops a type to it. The second he just looks in there, he has a connection to it that pulls him down. And by the way, this is one that I saw this, and I saw this many times. I guess I never really focused on it enough. But in the 8.5 years I was in special prison, I Hashem gave me the cake never to look at the all these boxes are up there playing away. Fakert, the Nuksa Nefesh was able to be achieved. And the Munah Bitachon is after by not looking and not getting involved with that and getting my information strictly from Kedusha. There's enough said and discussed, and we spoke about if any issue or nafshis that you have a whole Tanya, you have a whole specific cases for all Nigla and Chassidus, and who has to go to Aristotle B'Chavera to find out how to deal with Yiddish English for Meidele. Okay, we'll stop over here. Let's finish with the Chaim. The Chaim, maybe they should bench everybody with Agudah Shleimer, which comes the discourse of Munah Legal of Mitzrayim. And obviously, we all have a Munah, we want Mashiach now. And we should bring Mashiach now, the Chaim. Officially, it's like a few minutes here for questions and answers. So, if there's any questions, hopefully there's answers. See, I said it so well, there's no questions. That's from higher. Okay, the Rebbe says, now go there. How come there's only the initials at the end? You ever hear that one? You have Arba Bon, Arba Bon Divatata. Right? You have a Chochem, you have a Rosh, you have a time of Schlüssel. How can the Sheini additions at the end? Who's worse? The guy can't ask a question. A little baby is worse than the Rosh who's fighting you. In the lineup, there's a Chochem, the Rosh, Tam, it should be a Chochem, Tam, addition to the Rosh. But why the addition at the end? So seemingly the line that he can't. So the answer is very simple. That the addition of Dafka is a little baby. It could be an adult. It could be a person Dafka. Somebody doesn't say mitzvahs. A person Dafka does keep all Tayag mitzvahs. He has no question. The reason he has no questions is nothing bothers him. The Eibishter wants him to do it. He gets up in the morning, goes to shul, he davens, he learns his shir, and he's off to the races. The Eibishter wants him to stop and daven mincha, he davens mincha. He wants him to daven ma'ida before sleep, daven ma'ida. But to bother him, so I guess whatever I spoke, I'm mashing myself, no questions. So the Eibishter helps us going good from the arguments. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, mine. Okay.
So someone asked about Shah Bitachon.
Huh?
Someone asked about learning Shah Bitachon.
Oh, so the many this is obviously you can type more than you can count. The many people that came up to the Rebbe and asked him for a bracha, some for panasa, some for help, some for shidduchim, and the many people that Rebbe answered that they should learn Shah Bitachon. And the strength of Bitachon, as the Rebbe explains in many psichos, the Rebbe discusses this and explains it, that Bitachon itself is the gula, is the way, the keli for getting the yeshua you want, is trusting Hashem will do. Now, one of the biggest challenges with Bitachon is as is with the Munah, and we saw tonight. You talk to a Jew about a Munah. He says, "What's the problem? I have it. It's true." You talk to him about Bitachon. He says, "Of course I have it. I trust him." And then the conversation stops very quickly. But that's what the Rebbe was saying. You learn Shah Bitachon. In order to really understand what Bitachon is, Bitachon is an avodah. It takes 5 hagdomas to have real true Bitachon.
Forgot my thing.
You have Bitachon.
Forgot my thing.
It's true in the sense of Mitzadi Neshama. Like he says, have a munah. I have faith in God. Do mitzvah.
I left on the table.
God understands me. I don't me and God. So I have to still do same thing. In order to be able to live properly, and for the Bitachon to bring down the Yeshua, you have to have. It doesn't mean positive thinking. Bitachon expresses itself with positive thinking, but the roots, why you think positive? Not because positive thinking has its proven scientific things that it affects the world around it, which you think how to explain. Even if the saying has a point, but that's a Bitachon within the realm of nature. Bitachon means trusting in Hashem with higher than nature and bringing upon yourself in the Torah that's higher than nature. That's why even if it's massive.
Oh, these are pink. Never mind. I thought they went back there. Never mind. I'm not walking that far out.
Huh? How are you supposed to answer this question? You're supposed to justify the very things. Emuna is, by the way, Emuna, first of all, precisely because of things or things that happen in the world that are very, very painful. That's the reason you should have been talking about to get out of it. That's the one answer. The second part. And so the first answer, the Emuna is exactly precisely for those times we can't understand. A yid who has, every yid has pure faith, Emuna, the Eibush that knows that the Eibush is higher than understanding, and to look for an explanation for certain things is not achievable. Certain things the Eibush allows us to see the explanation during the time, before the time, or after the time. Certain things you don't. But Emunah, by definition, means. I like to go back to the story from the Rebbe Rayatz. I think it's a very important story about Emunah. Famous story when the Rebbe Rayatz was arrested and taken before Yibes Tammuz. The Rebbe was arrested 7 times. So this time it was before the seventh one. He was brought into the interrogation room, and he was asked questions where he was. They wanted him to divulge names and who was doing it, and of the different supporters of who was the teachers of the different ways of the many yeshivas and big party he was making. So he wouldn't tell him that. So the guy pulled out a gun, he points it to the Rebbe, and he says to the Rebbe, "This little toy made a lot of people talk, or change them to talk." Yeah. And the Rebbe famously answered that this toy can only scare somebody who has one world and two gods. Somebody has two worlds and one God is not afraid of this toy. And the officer put away the gun. Obviously, this is a very inspiring story. It shows, but I remember by Habrigan, Neil Khan extended the story in a very, very deep way, which is you can take this in every situation in life you have. And he and like I said, when a Rebbe says a story, there's a lot of limit going on. So what did Rebbe mean when he said a person who has one world and two gods is afraid? The person who has two worlds and one God is never afraid. Well, the one world part you understand. At first, if you have one world, and the guy's pointing a gun at you, and you're afraid he's going to shoot you, and if he does shoot you, you lost everything. You got afraid. If you have two worlds, you get shape because if he shoots you, you have a second, you have a backup. You have no problem, right? But that explains the first part. But they never did it. He said, if somebody has two gods, the guy is afraid. And somebody who has one God is never afraid. What's with that? How does that enter the story and why? And explain this. What does two gods mean? People have many gods. There's two gods. You have a God of rain, the God of wind, the God. There's a lot of gods going on in many people's life. The God of money, the God of political power. Everybody has their God. Yeah. What's this two? Two mean like this. In order to explain good things and bad things that happen in the world, people neatly developed a two-God theory. Obviously, it's a bit Zara, which says that there's a God, there's a good God, there's good things, and there's a bad guy that does bad things. So if the good things are happening, you ascribe it to the good God that you're worshiping, and the bad things comes from the other guy. So if bad things happen, it means there was a stick of food going on. Huh? You can't blame the good guy. That's it. So such a person is always afraid. If a person is serving two gods and he's going with a good guy, and suddenly a gun is pointing on him, you have to made it on that because it looks like the power suddenly shifted, the power shift, and suddenly the bad guys in control. Is he afraid? But the Rebbe says a person who believes in one God is never afraid, because he knows whatever is going on is coming from one God. And the Eibishter is a Rachman. And they just say, and the Mela, once you know it's coming from this, so the same way yesterday before the gun was pointing on you, you were serving the Eibishter, you were doing the and you weren't afraid. Now the gun is pointing at you, nothing changed. Nothing changed. The same Eibishter is making a gun pointing at you, and you can keep on going, doing what you got to do. Forget it. By you not getting afraid, by you can maintaining your simcha and doing the mitzvahs, that takes away that Nisayan, that facade that's making you try to make you believe there's a second power in the world. So this question about how to keep Emunah Bitachon strong is fakir. Emunah is a koyach, it's a real koyach that comes from the neshama. It's not safe. Emunah will make something. Emunah is more real than seichel. People think that we have seichel. That's real. If you understand something, that's real. Emunah is imagination. Seichel is limited. Something you couldn't understand. Emunah, even when you can't understand, Emunah is even stronger. When the Emunah and the Eibishter are stronger, that whatever is happening from the Eibishter, and therefore we have to maintain our Avodas Hashem, the Avos Hashem, Yirus Hashem, and believe that the Mashiach is coming. And fakir, this is just we're going straight to Rabbi Sholom. And fakir, Bitachon means that since the Tzara is coming from the Eibishter wants our Bitachon, we're going to get out of it. How does 3 questions come up? And is Bitachon also Ruchnis in Yana Shemaya? It's my Aveda. The answer is, if you look at Bitachon, the answer to that question says also that it shayches, every mitzvah is divided into 3 parts. There's the Bechira of the mitzvah, like the one to the mitzvah, and the Asisa mitzvah. The Bechira and Asisa mitzvah that is up to you, it's your Veda. But to be able to do the mitzvah, then you have to have a Bitachon that will give you the ability to do it. So, for example, if a guy is in a place for prison, if you want to do the mitzvah, and he can choose to do the mitzvah, but he doesn't have a still, he can put it on. He has a way to fight, to want to do the mitzvah and fight for the mitzvah and to actually get it. That's Bitachon will get it to him. I gotta say, Baruch Hashem, I never missed one day putting on tefillin, making it here. And I always thank David for it. Many times throughout the whole thing that they took it away, they won't give it to me. So it was fakir. It was the fighting for it, and the way a person was able to fight in such a situation that David saw that I really wanted it. So the Bitachon David made that seer possible. How did you? Okay, how do I don't say the last question, but how do you maintain focused mental strength? A yid has how do you maintain focused mental strength? It's a storim, the mashpia, and the answer is yes. The answer is through storim, to learning. The learning Torah is Tammuz Torah, the most important thing we can do is to learn, because how much a person thinks that he has it understood. The next day when he wakes up in the morning, the Yitzhara is Adam again. The Avedis Hayim never changes. It's not like a person can learn about a Munah and have a strong Munah, learn about Bitachon Leibishter, and then feel that he won't be attacked by Yitzhara and just try to throw questions and problems on it. Faket. Every day is a new sun, new Yitzhara, and so therefore, I Baruch Hashem. In the school, in this crazy, in this insane institution, they gave everyone a small little. Like it says in Tanya, the achdus and the chibur that you make with Eivish, that the yichud learning is English shayah. So every time you do a mitzvah, every time you learn, you're infusing yourself with a connection with Eivish, that's forever. And suddenly you find koyach you never knew you had. Every time you do a mitzvah, if a person goes through the whole idea, you write a letter to the person is sick. What do I ever tell them? Check your mezuzah. What does a mezuzah have to do with the physical illness? By a yid it does. That's exactly the point. By a yid, his emunah and his bitachon, his mitzvah has a shaykhs to bitachon also. So it's not that there's a. We talk about it so many times. When it comes to mamish living it, somehow I don't know where is the disconnect? In Matan Torah was a chibur mile and matan. The idea is being the get down this road. So obviously, when we do the Torah mitzvahs, we're bringing peace upon ourselves, simcha upon yourself, and the protection upon yourself. What is the hard to understand? And this is what Torah mitzvahs is. How do you how to go up to Torah mitzvah? The biggest present she gave us was Torah mitzvah. So we learn Torah. You have over here every Wednesday, every 2 times a week, come to the learn. It's not just to fill your time. You better do it. Come and learn. Fakert, when you show David to have a minute free, instead of going out and filling a cup, I'm going to use it to learn a mind, to learn about Gemara, to learn a Mishnais, to learn a Bitachon. That's what we do with it. So what are you showing? You're showing yourself and you're showing your children around you, and you have a minute, you learn Torah. And that learning Torah brings you it's not mental strength. But it's a kayach. It's a kayach. It's you who you are. People use just to bring our own nakuda maybe. People always use the word the tools to do something. It's more than tools. Torah doesn't give you tools to do nothing. I mean, I take it back. It's not just tools. Torah shows you that the kayach. Torah gives you the kayach to do yachid. A tool is something exterior to you. When someone gives you a tool, it gives you something exterior to you, how to get something done. When you learn Torah and you do a mitzvah, you're awakening kaychis in yourself that you never had. It's your own kaychis. It's a whole different level. It's way beyond a tool. When you learn Torah, when you strengthen your imun and the Eibishter, the achdus habeira, then suddenly anything that's not correct Eibishter becomes weak. Because you become strong in the knowledge and your understanding that everything's Eibishter, so anything that's against Eibishter becomes weak. You have that kaya. That's what imun is. That's what Bitachon is. It's not a tool. When you find your midas, when you go above your magali and chiddush b'nefesh, what you're doing is you're bringing a likus, which is higher than the world, into your world around you. And I saw this 8.5 years, never got hurt by an inmate. By the guards, they beat me up, but I never got hurt by inmates. And you were talking about guys there that resolve problems by a punch to their face. It wasn't an institution of higher learning over there. Over there, these guys were street guys. They solve problems with setting up or gang against. And here's a little shmega, 5 Yiddish boy. And not only did they beat me up, they had the biggest defense for me. I was told. And 3 days before they should feed me, a guy comes over to me, and the guy, he says to me, I'm finishing the story, he says to me, no, I don't know why I told the story, I had very, very little doing with him. He tells me, if I met you on the street, I would pass you up and you would pass me, we wouldn't look at each other. Because we're different. I mean, this guy looked like a real talk. I mean, he looked apart. He wasn't just and he says, but now that I got to know you, I thank God I met a person like you. Why he told me, I don't know. But this is the care that we have. The whole world was created for us. Why in the world would we look into the world for what we need? We're on our heads. The whole thing is even in cup. The world was created for us through Torah. Our job is to connect to the Eibush Torah, and then the world becomes our place.
So first of all, throughout the summer, there'll be a program here every night. Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, 8 o'clock. 8:15 is the share starts till 9:30. So you're welcome to join. Throughout the summer, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Tomorrow night, there'll be the Hananya Offenshire, which will give a share on Hilchos Beis HaBchira. It'll be also with a visual presentation. And then Wednesday, there'll be the Yossi Altiel, who'll be giving a share over here. As well, there will be more Gashmis. And after Ma'ariv, there will be a share on Hilchos Beis HaBchira. I think you need to